things like Confucius and some of those Eastern philosophers and stuff like that. There's so much that is passed down through that and then so much of the history we have is because it's fantastic enough that we drum roll, and we're back.
Yes.
Welcome to another episode of the Joe and Doug Show. This is catching up with Joe and Doug. It's been like
who are you again? Wait,
yeah, like it's been a while. So what's Joe been up to over the last
always
10,
busy.
12 days? Yeah,
like it was cool. Like this weekend was a weird thing because like I had Saturday. I usually work all morning and then do the radio show. So Saturday is a normal day, and I didn't have anything scheduled. So I decided not to do anything, and it was good for a little while, and then I had so much guilt. I'm like, I feel like I'm a slacker. Like it felt so terrible.
Yeah, no, it's always interesting. I was just having this conversation with somebody this morning. You know, it's an interesting biblical principle. So in creation, God says 6 days you will work, and the seventh day you will rest. And everybody focuses on the rest portion. But this guy said to me today, he said, you know, part of the Sabbath rest is working 6 days. He's like, we're not designed to retire. We're not designed. It was a really interesting concept. And it hit me. I remember being on my honeymoon and it was 8 days and we talked about doing 10 and we went 8 and I got to like day 7 and I was like, I'm ready to come home.
Yeah.
Like this is cool. And like sitting on the beach is cool and all, but like I can only ride so many waves. I can only swim with so many fish. And some people are like, I could take a month's vacation or whatever. And I'm like, I don't know. I just get to a certain spot where like, all right, it's just too much. Even I love going to Israel. 10 days is about my max.
Right.
And they give us like a day off at like day 8 or day 9. And it's at that point where I'm like, I miss my family. I miss work. I miss, because I'm fulfilled by those other things. Right. So it's always interesting when you take a space and do nothing and you hit a spot and you're like,
Yeah, it's because you got to exercise and flex what you've built up. And when you're not in that deal, I mean, downtime's one thing to recuperate, but once you've recuperated, it's just kind of wasteful spending at that point.
Exactly. So you had some downtime. You chased after some ghosts.
I did.
So what was that like, and where'd you go, and what'd you do?
Yeah, it was cool. So I'm the sort of like the built-in cynic when it comes to that realm. So I'm super interested in what the brain does when you isolate and put yourself in a dark room and let spooky things start happening. And so like this was a cool deal. So we were in this basement room, and it was like pretty spooky. Okay. And there's some things that had happened in that room. So when you're sitting in there, you're like looking for that next thing to happen. But then like sitting in that same room, and if I get working on something, I forget that I'm in that room, it's no longer spooky. So the spookiness only existed like here. Yep. It wasn't a real thing that whole time.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Do you find what you're looking for? You're in that room looking for ghosts, so therefore you find them. And if you aren't in that room looking for ghosts, you don't find them. Do you find that to be true?
So I hear a spooky noise and it is the refrigerator, and I hear a spooky noise and it is the space heater, and it's always like drawing these lines and saying I figure most of them out.
Yeah, that's wild. We should do that. It would be kind of wild to do that, like in a place that is not haunted. Like everybody goes to like the places that have the stories, but I would imagine like going to, but like other like spiritual places, like even like a church, like to measure. I don't know, what do you guys use to measure? You just go around with a camera and see if what do they use to measure stuff like that? What is
okay? So they have these radio frequency monitors,
like Ghostbuster stuff.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And so like if you get magnetism or magnetic fields around things, it's supposed to mean that there's a density of energy, and energy equals spiritual realm for some reason.
Okay.
Another thing, there was this cool thing. It was called a spirit box, and it was basically an FM transmit or an FM receiver that would every quarter of a second scan to a new radio frequency. And so you hear actual broadcasts going on. But if you ask questions, somebody puts earphones on and they listen to this, and words jump out of it, and you basically scream out whatever words you heard. And it's supposed to answer questions of people that you can't hear asking questions behind you. Some of it spookily lines up, and some of it, like we're in a firehouse, and I clearly heard a song that said firefighter. So when I said firefighter, everybody's like, ooh.
Oh, Joe, I would be so making fun of the whole thing if I was there. I'd be bad to have that. You wouldn't want me on camera. I would just be like, this is silly, guys. Oh, it's fun. So I saw you were out of keto.
Yes.
How was
for
that?
an entire week? It was terrible. It was awful.
What did you eat? What was worth eating?
I indulged. I ate lots of pizza. I had sushi Saturday, did some ice cream, milkshakes. I mean,
Beautiful.
anything that you usually don't eat, I ate. And I was like, I'm always tired. Why do I feel like napping? My eyes are really heavy at 6:30. So yeah, I don't want to do that ever again.
I'm telling you, I felt so good the 2 days that we fasted together. And just from a health standpoint, and my brain keeps going back to that spot, that as I went back into my quote unquote normal life, I'm like, I just don't want to eat anymore. I felt really good those 2 days. Now, obviously, that's not sustainable for the long haul, but just in comparison, it was so juxtaposed to how I felt. Like I didn't have any bloating. I didn't feel like, sometimes after you eat a big meal, you're like, ugh, and you want to nap or whatever. Like I had energy. I felt sharp. I wasn't thinking about certain things. Sure, did I have some hunger pains here and there? But the trade-off, my wife even said she felt really good. She only did it for 24 hours, but she's like, man, I think I could try and do this, once or twice a month. Like it feels pretty good.
Yeah.
And I didn't take any supplements. I didn't take anything. I just did water for the 48 hours and I felt great. And I'm kind of like, do that again.
Yeah, we're gonna do another one the end of November, right before Thanksgiving, and then you can come out of it and eat some Thanksgiving treats.
Yeah, eat some. Yeah, I'm not sure that'll be good. My brothers are coming in. My brother Dan and his wife are coming in with their kids Tuesday, I think, and so Thursday we're gonna do Thanksgiving. Then my brother Don's coming in Friday from Cleveland, and we're gonna do pasta and a whole bunch of stuff, just carb load for the weekend. It's gonna be wild.
You're gonna die. Yeah. So the week before that, we're gonna do another Tuesday to Thursday, possibly to Friday. You're in again.
Yeah.
All right.
It felt great, and for me, the social aspect is fun. So the fact that we were texting each other, and that to me is the enjoyable. Yes, I felt good physically. Yes, I got some answers on some stuff spiritually and prayed through some things. But for me, it's the same thing. Like going to the gym is fun because of who I'm with. Fasting was fun because we were texting and my wife was doing it too. Like I felt like I had like a little community doing it. And so I don't know. It hits my reward zones.
We're gonna have all of the other hosts to see if they want to do it. We have two guys in the Can't Unlock the Pod. They're gonna do it.
Oh, sweet.
But you ever see those challenges where everybody puts their hand on the car and the last person to remove the car, they get the car? So we should make a prize that the person that checks out and eats first eats last wins.
It's one of my favorite episodes of Blacklist. I don't know if you ever watched.
Yes,
Blacklist.
You're right.
Where Reddington sends Glenn to win this car for him, and he's all night and he's trying to stay awake. And it's such a funny episode. Glenn's great in that episode. But so you ate a bunch of stuff. Are you back in keto yet?
Not yet. It'll take me till like Wednesday, Thursday. I did a 24-hour fast yesterday, and I'll do another 24 hours today, and then I'll probably Wednesday, Thursday, I'll be back in.
Nice.
I'll be happy again.
Nice. And then holiday plans. So it's November. Everybody's talking about Thanksgiving, Christmas. What did the Daniers do?
There's a steering wheel and a Augusta bus in our future. We're going to, we usually spend Nags Head. We usually spend Thanksgiving in Nags Head. So
nice.
North Carolina.
Now, do you guys do turkey and the whole deal while you're there?
In this campground, they serve turkey and stuffing and the whole thing. So we get out.
It's a communal Thanksgiving.
Yes, a little buffet. You go through.
That is like everything against Joe's. You're going to be around all these people that you don't know.
Yeah.
And you're going to have Thanksgiving together. Mm-hmm. That's huge.
Can I tell you something? And this is, I think my exposure to that C word, I think I had it at last year in Nags Head. Yeah. So I think I actually might have brought it back to Ohio, or maybe I brought it from Ohio to Nags Head. Oh. But I might be patient zero for that.
Wow. Yeah. Look at you spreading the love.
That's it.
And then Christmas, is Gus going anywhere?
Oh yeah. Christmas, that's going to be a long trip. We're going down to Texas. We're going down to right across the island away from where SpaceX has their stuff. So I'm praying for a launch. I'm trying to wiggle my way in for some kind of tour of the facility. So it's going to be fun.
That's cool. So, and where is that? Is that Houston?
No, it's I'm trying to think of the name. It's San Padre Island.
Oh, okay, very cool.
San Padre Island. Yeah.
San Diego.
There we go. San Diego.
So yeah, that's awesome. My mother-in-law's coming in for Christmas. We're all getting the house ready for the holidays and stuff, and it's good. So for a brief topic today that we can dive into now that we're caught up a little bit, I want to talk about holidays and celebrations, but in this sense, You guys are big Halloween people.
Mhm.
I saw the costumes
Oh,
and
yeah.
stuff. Looked awesome. I dressed
Thank
up
you.
for the first
I
time.
saw that.
I was Fat Thor from Endgame. It was warm.
You're
I'll tell
side
you
by
that.
side. That was
That was
pretty
pretty
good.
good.
It was.
And I ordered all the, so you could order the whole costume, like, and they put all the pieces together for you, and it was like $200. I got everything for like 112. I just ordered all the pieces separate because I was like, if you get the package, you're probably getting a little cheaper stuff, and they're putting it together for a reason, and they're keeping their markup. But I'm like, if I order a decent bathrobe that I'm going to wear again, or order a
right.
sweatshirt or pajama pants. I bought Crocs for the first time. They're pretty comfy, I'm not going to lie.
So half your costume is just going to integrate in your normal.
Yeah. So if you see me at Giant Eagle in Crocs and pajama pants and a bathrobe, just know it was my Halloween costume.
Good stuff.
Get my money's worth for it. So I want to touch on holidays, but I want to do it in this framework. So holidays for a lot of people are like the only time, certain holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, depending on what you celebrate. Sometimes they're like they're the winning the lottery of time, right? So nobody, that period of time gets set aside, and they go all in on that. And it's, a quick, oh, we're going to spend time with family. We're going to go all in on this space instead of building those little incremental things in, like we talk about all the time. And so you have that when it comes to time. Those same people struggle with money. They go all in on big purchases and stuff. They don't do the little incremental stuff over time. So I want to talk about the little incremental stuff when it comes to time and when it comes to money. And I want to do it in two ways.
Okay.
So the holiday aspect, just like you're saying, you fast 24 hours, in a week, you space those things out. And then the holidays are a blessing and not just like a relief.
Yes.
And so for so many people, it's just like, oh, Christmas is finally here. I don't have to go to work. Or, oh, Thanksgiving's here. I get 3 days off. It becomes a relief rather than a blessing, because I'm actually all rested up so I can do what I want when I come in. I have energy. I'm excited. I'm not, and then some people dread the time off because they're like, oh, I'm going to get behind on so much work. And, and so they never get to enjoy it. I saw a TikTok by Grant Cardone, and he was saying that for so many people, because they're broke, they worry about money before they go on vacation. Then while they're on vacation, they fret about the money they're spending. And then when they come back, they're worried about all the money they racked up on their credit card. And so you really haven't vacationed from anything. You went away and you spent money you didn't have to do something that you can't afford. And then it just, has worn you down. And so I look at all of those things, and here comes my big question. Yes. This is going to catch you out of left field. Okay. This is a Joe moment. I've been talking about all the special stuff. This is where money comes in. So a lot of people right now, I don't know if you saw, but Aaron Rodgers is putting a portion of his contract in Bitcoin. Tom Brady gave the guy who got his 600 ball a Bitcoin. You have a lot of people. I have a lot of pastor friends, younger people that are coming up in faith, and they're thinking, man, I'm just going to invest in crypto and I'm going to make a ton of money. Or they're buying these obscure, coins, and they're like, I'm going to, dump $1,000 or $10,000 in this, and it's going to go up, 0.2%. But if it goes up 0.2%, I'm going to make $1,000 and then I'm going to get out. And it kind of feels like I'm going all in on that vacation because I haven't done the incremental. And so I want to talk about that, and we can go time or money, because one of the conversations Sam and I've started to have, and I know you've done this with a few of the guys here, you took some money and were showing them how to invest and how Joe does that. So I've downloaded a few apps. I'm getting ready to open a separate bank account that we're going to put extra funds in that I can learn how to do this stuff. And so I'm going to employ Joe's help here, because I don't want to just like, oh, let me put $1,000 on that, and then I'll just yank it out at the end of the week. And yeah, I may have made $1,000, but I also could have lost $1,000 really quick. So talk about the incremental versus the long haul. I know we do this a lot, but just hit that principle, and then let's talk about it in terms of money and investing.
So you keyed in on both sides of this, because when you kind of buy into what we do, you're basically being proactive. We understand sort of like that incremental when we're trying to like lose weight or something on the negative side, we're being
Right.
pushed into it. But what happens like when you win
Yeah.
the lottery and when something good happens,
Yep.
like you just figure it out, right?
Mhm.
Well, no, you have to do the same thing on the other side, because as you condition yourself out of a bad situation, you have to condition yourself into a good situation.
Yeah, that's good.
And it's not like, most of the time, if you get an inheritance or whatever, you end up just offloading it to someone who knows what they're doing, and then they mess around with it. They get the good part, and they leave you what you're willing to tolerate.
Even when you get an influx of money like that, I've had, my dad passed and my father-in-law passed, and both times that there was life insurance and money that was passed down, and both times we went and we used it for, hey, we paid the car off, or we had to, we had to do something with it, and it wasn't necessarily like pay your house off kind of money, but it was enough that we could do some substantial stuff. But then you do it, and then you're like, okay,
it's gone.
It's gone.
Just got absorbed into your life.
Exactly. And the conversation my wife and I have often is like, we'll get into a quote unquote good place financially. We'll tighten the straps a little bit. We'll get to a spot where, oh wow, this is good. We've put money away. We've got this much in savings. We've got this going on over here. And then it's like we get to that spot, and then all of a sudden we're like, how did we get $7,000 back on the credit card? And like, oh, I'm back in the same spot I was.
That's the negative.
9 months ago. And it's like, but we worked really hard to get here, but now we're trying to compensate for this over here. And I feel like we have a whole generation of people, myself included. I'm trying to break out of that and go, all right, if I really want to make an investment in my future, it's not just about tightening the bootstraps and getting to a place, but I'm going to have to learn some incremental new habits, and I'm going to have to make money work for me. I heard somebody say this in a video recently. I've been watching a lot of financial podcasts and stuff like that. I'm just trying to sharpen myself, and I'm listening to a lot of guys, some guys that I don't agree with necessarily, but I'm like, that's an interesting idea. He said, income is poison. And his whole point, that was the title of the video. And he talked about how income is what poor people do. Wealthy people do investments and make money work for themselves, work for them. And income is you working for somebody else. Investments is money working for you.
Right.
And he did a great job making it, but it was very strong language. I've heard Mr. Wonderful Kevin O'Leary say, salary is the drug they give you to keep you addicted to working.
Yes.
And it's just, so I'm hearing a lot of these things, and I'm formulating. My wife and I are talking about like, all right, we've made some healthy shifts in our finances. We've done some stuff that we're happy with. And now we're going, all right, we have a little bit of money. So how do we make it work for us? You listen to Grant Cardone, you should only ever invest in real estate. And then you listen to other people, and they're doing stocks and bonds and mutual funds. And I'm like, I don't know if I have enough money to make a dent in either one of those worlds right now, but what could I do in the short term? You took a couple of guys, and I think everybody put in $1,000, and you were just like, this is what I do. So if Joe had $1,000, that's it, to make an investment, where does Joe start?
Okay. So I know we get fixated on the nouns, right?
Mm-hmm.
The $1,000 and where to put it, but that's really not where you want to start mentally.
Okay.
Right. And so we got to think, like, if I gave you $1,000, you're like, give me the $1,000 and I want to throw the Hail Mary. And that's what you would actually do. And that's the wrong thing. So it doesn't matter where you put it. Yeah. So I'll give you an example. I'm doing a test back here where I bought a $5,500 Bitcoin miner. I
saw you putting
$5,500 worth of Bitcoin. But I didn't buy the Bitcoin in a block of $5,500, right? I put cash in at $5,500, and I bought $120 worth, then $70 worth, then whatever. So because the mentality is I wanted to buy a Bitcoin when I would buy Bitcoin, but I don't know if it's a good price today or not because I'm in it one day. That would be a Hail Mary. So I want to buy today and then have something to compare a buy. So if I bought today at 100 and tomorrow it's 90, right? Well, then it's a better price. And I'm going to buy when it's lower than my cost basis. So when you establish sort of like a ritual of what you do, I want to buy Bitcoin every day for the rest of my life. That would be me investing in Bitcoin. If I spend all of my money on Bitcoin today, what if I don't have any more money and now I'm no longer investing anymore, right? So that is if you have 1,000, then you need to break that down into smaller things that you can do over a period of time. So when can you reload your $1,000? Well, maybe that's once a year you could put 1,000. So do 1,000 divided by 365, and now you're a $10 investor every day until you get another reload.
Interesting.
Doesn't care. It doesn't matter where you put it.
Okay. So you would rather, so just hear me out. You'd rather take $10 every day and think through all right, I'm going to buy $10 of Tesla today, and I'm going to buy
Yes.
$10 of Bitcoin today, and I'm going to buy $10 of this over a year and watch it ebb and flow, then go, all right, I'm going to take my $1,000 and I'm going to buy January 1st, 100 here, 100 here, 100 here, and just let it ride for 12 months. And that's a better.
For sure. Because you're conditioning you and your efforts over a period of time. Right.
That's good.
Okay. So what are you comparing?
So this
it
is
again?
more behavioral.
It 100%,
not outcome.
100%.
Love it.
So, okay, that the real comparison is take that $1,000 and you put it in those companies over a period of time. You'd be like, well, what if I pick wrong, or what if I lose money, or what if I whatever, versus what that $1,000 that would have got absorbed in your life and you would have spent it on whatever. Yeah. So that would be 100% loss. Right now, you're buying information when you buy into these investments. You don't know anything about Bitcoin. You don't know anything about real estate and whatever. But that $10,
I just know Aaron Rodgers is putting into his contract.
That's it. So
Amazon's gonna start taking it as payment.
Yeah. Right. So you're buying a little bit of information. If you put $10, you're gonna watch it. Like, how people bet on sports
sure
and whatever, because they watch more intently and they pay attention to things that they don't notice before, because now they've got something riding on it. You're like, hey, I got $10 in Bitcoin, let me watch it. It makes you look at something. Otherwise you're like, I want to put it in there and I don't want to have the responsibility.
I'll check it in 10 months and we'll see what happens.
It's not investing. That's Hail Marrying, and you don't make money that way.
Interesting. So the behavior of, hey, I'm going to take $10 every day and make a good buy.
Yep.
Is what you want to build here.
Correct.
Even though it may in the long term not necessarily make you money that first year or that second year, you're learning the system.
You're buying information, like you're going to the college of investing in whatever it is. And then eventually you'll know enough whether or not you want to do that. And then when you have real money, right, then you can pile it in there.
What apps do you use, or do you not use apps?
For Bitcoin?
For any of it. There's Coinbase, there's Webull, there's Robinhood. Yeah.
I use Coinbase for my Bitcoin and all of my cryptocurrency. Okay. And it was Scottrade. I don't know what it is. Ameritrade now. I don't know. I don't even know what it is, honestly.
No, that's just interesting because everybody's got their kind of, one that they like and stuff like that. And then where do you get your information on what to buy? Do you only buy stuff that pertains to Joe's world? Like, obviously I would imagine that Joe's an investor in Tesla.
For sure.
But do you only buy stuff that you use and believe in, or do you sometimes, take a shot at something you've never heard of?
Well, there's a portion of what I do is speculative, where Bitcoin is what I consider something that it could be zero tomorrow. And so that it's not 100% of my holdings. It's a very, very, very small part of my holdings, so that I can dabble in it. And if it becomes something, then I'm a part of it, but it doesn't represent my whole future. And then more, I'm not going to call it commodities, but it's something that has more of a sort of like an output. Like a Tesla is a machine for just making money, so that when you invest in it and you get good holdings in it, that they're going to grow and expand. Their beta is, or their returns are off the charts. Like, we're not talking IBM 5% or 10% or whatever. We're talking like 30 and 50%, if you can ride the waves,
Sure. I heard an interesting story about Tesla. I heard Elon Musk talking about the name. I don't know if you know this, but there was another company that owned the rights and the name to it, and he wanted it in the worst way. And so he said to his team, I want you to send the nicest person that we have down there and tell him not to leave until he gets a yes, and pay them whatever they want. And he paid $75,000 for the Tesla name. And because he's like, I knew if I went down there, I wasn't going to
$5 billion.
Yeah. And so I was like, send someone on our management team, the nicest person that we have, and just butter them up and pay them whatever they want for it. And I don't know, I don't know if it was a tech company or what it was, but I saw that. I think he was telling that story on a podcast, maybe Joe Rogan or somebody, but I was like, wow, that's really funny.
Thing of beauty.
So you have some speculative stuff. Yeah. I can remember my dad telling me when I was younger, he's like, you always want to invest in stuff that you're going to have to need, like water, death, food, like those things are always going to be purchased. You're always going to need. He's like, they're not going to have huge upside, but you're not going to lose money. It was like,
I'm not a safe player that way. Okay. No, I mean, if you're going to do investing, I mean, I told you a portion of it's going to be those ones that, like the IBMs, that just have a strict dividend and they have perpetual, growth, and it's really regimented growth, but those aren't really exciting. And if if you want to store your money in something that's not exciting, I mean, buy bonds or something like that, But yeah, you got to be interested in it. You got to buy into things that you care to learn about. Like if you don't care about Bitcoin, don't buy Bitcoin. If you don't care about tech, don't buy Tesla. You have to really know that that's like the future, and because you get into the storyline and the narrative around it, and it's more than just the company that you're investing in. It's more like you can be an advocate for an overall technology.
No, it totally makes sense. So then, for you, I think that's a good baseline. Pick the stuff that you know that you want to be interested in, all that. Do you use a financial firm for like? So there's a lot, especially now, and I'm talking with guys in their 20s and 30s right now that are coming into investing and stuff like that. There's almost this like everybody's a day trader kind of like feel to it, and nobody wants to like sit down with a financial and like, here's my portfolio and I have my Roth IRA and I have my 401k and I sit down with some finance guy and I pay them X% to manage my funds.
Right.
Do you believe in that in a traditional sense for the long haul, or do you do all of your own investments? Because I know you're kind of hands-on, so you might be a little different in this.
And so I consider that sort of like whatever I would outsource. When something like I want to be interested in my finances, and when you outsource that, then you're dependent on somebody else making good decisions. So if it goes great, I mean, I would love them and throw them parties and whatever. If it didn't go, I'd think, what the hell did they do wrong? It's not transparent. I can't see what they did. I could have done better, and I don't want to have a relationship where I'm gunning for somebody because I think that I could do better. But I think if somebody comes into, like I said, if you've never managed money before, it is safe to put it in the hands of someone who has proven record, right? So that you don't have to do it until you develop the skills.
Well, that's part of the reason I said to my wife as we started to do this, I was like, I want to sit down with Joe and figure this out because I've watched him. I know he's smart. I know he does this. And so I'm going to sit there and go teach me Obi-Wan, like show me your ways. As people are getting into that and into that space, I think it's fun to watch. But I look at it and I question it from this regard. It seems, and I've heard this argument made by people in the church, particularly, stock and investments and all that stuff. We put certain words on it, but it's technically just legal gambling because you're making a bet that company's going to do well. And if they do well, you got a return. Now, some people would argue, well, there's all kinds of research you can do and so on and so forth. And certain companies guarantee a certain percent, if you go with X, Y, and Z financial firm, we guarantee a 6.5% or whatever, return on your investment. So you have some of that. Do you ever wrestle with that? Does it ever?
No, not at all. The way that I look at it is because I'm a business and there's times when I have to raise money that, in the beginning stages, I wish that I could have gone with my business plan and got people to fund some of my ideas and gave them a portion of it back. Right. So when I look at it as private funding, meaning that you get to bankroll a company to do stuff without having them go to institutions to be able to get that cash, right? Instead of the bank making money, individuals get to make that same returns. Now the boring companies feel like gambling because it's more like so regimented that it doesn't feel like they're expanding and growing. But when you put money on like, hey, I want to open a plan and it's going to cost me $2 billion and I don't have $2 billion. So why don't you give me some money? I'll give you even shares of what that is proportional to what other. And as we grow, then you get those proportional shares and growth as well. So when you look at it like that, it doesn't feel like gambling anymore. It actually feels like an investment in growth.
Yeah. So for you, what is your expectation of return? So if you have $1,000 and you make that investment, you expect in 30 days to make what? And do you have expectation or you don't?
I don't. It's because it's such a malleable thing where things move around so often. I am not a put it in and forget it type of person. Right. So I'll put it in there. If what I think was going to happen doesn't happen, I just move it out and put it somewhere else where I think it's going to happen. As long as I'm right more than I'm wrong, I can keep playing.
Right. No, it makes sense. So you don't have like, all right, I have to make 5% over a period of time. You're not.
I don't think it ever. I don't think the math enters.
What do you typically get in a return? What has been your
I honestly record? I never stopped to calculate it, so I know my cost basis when I'm investing in something. I know what my cost was. But early on, like I was investing in something that cost $100 and now it costs $3,000. So which one am I taking under consideration? I don't know what my returns are.
Interesting. So I bought $500 worth of Bitcoin in 2016 or 2017 when Bitcoin was only $9,000, $8,000 a coin. Now it's 66,000.
Right.
And then I took said funds and I bought some of the other coins. And I've heard some people say Bitcoin is the only way to go if you're going to go in crypto, that all the other coins are speculative nonsense, don't do it, etc. Do you feel that Bitcoin is the way to go, or do you have other coins that you've bought?
Okay, so here's my philosophy on it. So Bitcoin was just like all of the other coins at a period of time.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't enough liquidity, or it was too small of a thing. It could be manipulated, and people used it in scams and whatever, because there was just not enough money in it, and small people with a little bit of money can affect the overall deal. So they could do schemes and ripoffs and whatever. And then it got to a point where there was so much money in it that it was a little less it was a little bit more impervious to people manipulating it. Smaller coins, people are jacking with those prices. So ups, like, why did it go up? Right.
Yeah.
It's not because it's deflationary. It's not because that, somebody's dropping, value into it. It's because there's people sending emails out to other people saying, hey, the value's going to double next week, whatever. And then you go in and they dump off and whatever. That's what's really happening. So I kind of stay out of those realms for as long as I possibly can. I bought some Doge yesterday, $200 for the Doge, only because, just not even for a joke, just because I watch when people on Reddit or on Twitter start talking about it, and I know they're going to inflate it. So I just buy a little bit, wait till they inflate it, and I dump out. I'm not involved. I'm not pumping, right? I'm just benefiting from the pump.
Yeah. Watching what's going on in the market is one thing. And so, as I step into this, or maybe some of our listeners are thinking, I want to step in, you're recommending, you're going to buy a little bit every day, and you're going to buy into stuff that is important to you.
Well, instead of saying buying every day, I look at it every day and only buy when I would buy it. There's times when I look at it and I'm above my cost basis and whatever, and I'm like, I'm not buying right now. So I might go 6 months without buying anything because I look at it every day and say, yep, not a day to buy.
Do you feel like, there's lots of doom and gloom on the horizon by everybody? I know we don't subscribe to that here on the Joe and Doug Show. But obviously inflation, there's a bunch of concerns, the Fed raising rates, all that stuff. What's your outlook for 6 months, 18 months? I mean, is Joe concerned on it? Because that's going to affect the stock market when you start thinking about that sort of stuff. And it could mean certain things go up and other things go down. So you could make a killing, but you could also get hosed too.
Yeah, no matter what, there's an up and a down to everything, and you can buy on either side of the up and buy. So everything is like, there's an arbitrage for basically everything that there is. So, like, for instance, inflation's happening. You can complain about inflation, or the one thing. Here's two things that happen. Number one, if you're holding cash, it goes down in value. So don't hold cash. Move it into something that's not going down in value or whatever.
Yeah.
And number two, your debt gets less valuable. Right. So if you're holding a lot of debt when inflation happens, it's taking a portion of what your debt used to be and making it worth less. So you get
interesting.
So if you're holding a lot of debt, inflation really helps you at this point.
We only have a few more minutes. We're going to have to do a whole show on this. So I told you, I've been watching a lot of financial YouTube and TikToks and podcasts. And I've just been diving into this world because I want to learn about it, because I feel like this next season of Sam My Life is going to be about not just working for a paycheck, but starting to make some investments and starting to really dive into a wealthy mindset. And so several of the people that I listen to, and I think you're even in this camp, and we've dabbled in this a little bit. So I heard a guy say this, and my mother-in-law, if she listens to this, is going to want to crucify me.
Okay.
She's a huge Dave Ramsey fan. But I've heard multiple guys say this, that Dave Ramsey does a great job at keeping people poor. He gets them out of debt, but he never teaches them to build wealth, is their point.
Okay.
And they say the tools that he uses to get people out of debt is great, but he never teaches people how to build wealth and make money work for them. And they always live in that kind of poverty mentality, according to them, where they're putting, dollar bills in envelopes and stuff like that. And these guys take out and they use debt for their assets. And, they talk about buying all these real estate buildings and stuff like that. And you listen to them and I'm like, I don't know what you are, like, lying to the bank. Like in my head, I'm thinking like you have to have some sort of asset for the bank to lend you that kind of money to go
Right.
buy a $2 million, apartment complex that you're going to rent out. And they talk about these plans. And then some of these guys that have gotten into Airbnbs and some of that stuff, you listen to them, they're like cash flowing 80 grand a month on 4 Airbnbs. And they lay out the math and they're like, here's what it cost me. Here's what I do. Here's this stuff. And I look at some of that and it goes juxtaposed to a Dave Ramsey. Like they're taking out as much debt as possible
Mhm.
and doubling down because they can write it off. And they talk about from a tax standpoint, having assets in play and all this stuff. If I have cash, I get taxed on it. But if I put it into an asset, I can write off all sorts of stuff with that asset. We're gonna have to set up an
Sure.
episode on this because I've been digging into it and it's fresh for me. And I know it's a world, but obviously Dave Ramsey has some great principles and he's helped some people climb out of debt, and debt is not healthy. But would you agree with that assessment on wealth building, that debt is an important part of wealth building?
Yes and no. I
Okay.
think that if it's over leveraged or overutilized, it could make you not sleep well at night.
Sure.
Okay. Some of the risk that comes along with playing in that realm is that if you think what's going to happen, like you're sure it's going to happen, you're in good shape and you'll survive it. But if it doesn't go, if it goes
Mhm.
south, like have you ever lost something and still had to make payments on whatever you lost? And you're
Yeah.
playing in this world, like let's just say the value's half. You got a mortgage on something, or you got some kind of financing on something at $8 million, and now it's worth $4 million. You're going to make that payment. You can sell everything, right?
Yeah.
But your equity gets cut in half in like 2 seconds. So it might take you 20 years to get the $4 million worth of equity and lose it in 2 seconds. That's a bad game to play. I'd
Mm.
much rather you lose that out of cash. But it's one of those things where almost like how I use an American Express, I'm using debt. Technically, I'm
Mhm.
using debt,
Sure.
right? I'm using it for a specific purpose. I pay it off after 30 days. I use it for one deal. So if I over leveraged it where I spent more than I actually had,
Mhm.
then that would be an unhealthy relationship
Right.
with that card.
Interesting. We're gonna have to do an extended episode on this because I'm gonna come with questions. I think a little more prepared than just a one off. But I think most of the time for most people, we're trying to throw the Hail Mary and I'm gonna fix this with one investment. And in actuality, like you need to learn to play the game over days and months, not one investment.
Yeah, if you want to mail it in and not be responsible, then investing's not a game for you.
Yeah.
Put it in someone else's wheelhouse.
That's good. Come back Thursdays when you look at.
Thank you for listening to this show on Youngstown Studio. If you like our programming, we invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow our Facebook page, or subscribe to your favorite podcast platform like iTunes or Spotify. This is original Youngstown content, and we would appreciate you sharing the videos and the word about us. Thank you.